are CPU Robotics, 13415 Electric Storm. I'm Will Cardo.
I'm Logan Nissen.
Um,
So
the things you'll need for the code is a driver station, which could be either a driver hub or a phone, and then a robot controller, which would be a control hub or expansion hub, plus a phone.
or
And then you'll need a computer to code
program.
blocks.
So how to plug in your components? To plug in your components, you're going to need to plug in the power to the motor and the encoder, which is the little blue wired thing right there. And you can see that you have to plug them into the same slot, otherwise they won't do the same thing.
So the first one has nothing plugged into it. So there's no power and there's no encoder. The second one has power but no encoder. And then the third and fourth one have power and encoders. To configure your components, which would be your motors and servos and sensors, you're going to need to click on your driver hub or phone. You'll go to the three dots in the top corner and you'll click Configure Robot. And it'll take you to the next screen.
On the next screen, you'll see that one right there. You'll have to press New, and then you're gonna click the Expansion Hub Portal 1. And then if you have another one, you're gonna go to Expansion Hub 1, and then you'll go to Motors if you're coding a motor.
Then you'll have to name your motors. So once you've clicked into motors, you'll see the first screen.
You have to say what motor you have first.
So like the one that they have in there is the Robotics HD hex motor. And then you'll put in your motors and you'll have to name them. And you need to remember those names for when you're coding.
Now you have to save everything. It's pretty self-explanatory because once you press save, it's going to bring up all these three screens.
Click save, save, and save.
And then you'll eventually go back to the original screen. And now how to program and manage. So what you're going to do is, this isn't the correct screen, but the three dots would be the same. So you're going to click the three dots, you're going to click program and manage, and then you can't really see it, but there's a link right there.
It'll be about in that area on the phone. And that'll be your link. And you'll have to go to that.
And you'll type it into your computer, but in order for that to work, you have to connect
To your robot.
via internet.
To make the program, you'll have to select Create New Op Mode, which is the first one. And the op mode that you're selecting is Basic Tank Drive. And it'll have basic code in there.
And the code it will bring up is this right here. And so when it comes up, there's not going to be anything inside these brackets. It's just going to be blank. And you're going to have to select your motors that you previously named. So you want to remember which one's right or which one's left to plug them into there.
So, yours might not say front right. You could have named it you could have just named it right or named it left. But at the top of the screen, we can explain to you what kind of all this code is doing.
Yep.
So the big purple one, this one, is the run op mode. So everything that you'll be doing during that op mode will go in there.
And the next thing is to set the front right direction to reverse. This is for if you're only having two motors moving. So you'll have to select one to reverse because they both spin the same way. And if you want your robot to go forward, you're going to have to make them spin both opposite directions to go forward.
Otherwise, it would just be spinning in a circle. Because one's telling it to go forward, the other one's going forward, but its forward is the other way. Then you have, so all that stuff above the call wait for start, which is that purple one right there, will happen during initialize. So you see, when you click on your phone or your driver hub, initialize, all that stuff will happen. So it'll reverse the motor, the direction of the motor. And then once you click the play button, it'll do all the stuff below that.
So the giant if do blue block right here, it's saying call for, if tank drive is called, the op mode starts, which is everything that is in here.
So in your op mode, what will actually be happening, we have a repeat while, which means if you're doing, like while you're doing something, while the op mode is active, all of the stuff inside here will be happening.
So for instance, this green one right here is setting front left and front right power to the variable of the joysticks. So if the joystick were to move forward, that would be 1. But if it were to go halfway forward, it would be 0.5, setting the motor to 0.5 of speed.
And then we have these purple blocks in here. That's called telemetry, which basically is reporting data to you on this screen. So over here, it'll have telemetry. And so they named this one, they named the telemetry key left power or left POW. So that'll show the input of the power for your front left motor. And then the second one, they named right POW, and that'll show the input of the front right power.
And if you want your telemetry to call every time this loops back and forth, you're gonna have to put call telemetry update, so it doesn't just say the first input the entire time. You want to keep it updating the entire time your program is running.
So these are some of the links that are kind of useful for if you're just starting out programming. So the first one is a blocks programming guide, which is basically the same thing that we have here, but in first's own kind of way. The second one is some just programming YouTube videos. Both me and him are brand new from last year, and so you can, if you are looking for something specific, you can just search YouTube, and that's a good playlist right there for those. And the next one is a Canada YouTube that is also a programming one. And then there's an FTC coding simulator, and they have improved it a lot from last year, where they will have the field for this year, and so that you can test out your code instead of having to use your actual robot, you can test it out on there. And then the final one is another robotics simulator, and you can have it online or it can just be local to your personal computer. You can download it and use it without Wi-Fi.
Okay, now we're going to go to the actual
Click escape. Go over to
that one.
So we coded our robot, our teleop, all in blocks last year. So this is what ours looked like. And so we want to kind of help you like add your second motor so that yours can go from the basic tank drive to looking a little bit more complicated like this, where you can have a front right, a front left, a back right, and a back left.
So yeah, we had 4 motors driving our robot last year. So we had to do front right and back right direction to reverse, so it would go straight when we say tell it to go forwards. And down here, it's also setting all the powers to left stick and right stick. Why? To what the power of the joystick would be.
Switch the other side. That one. Down. Yeah. So this is your basic tank drive. That's what will, yes.
Why were there 4 motors
There were 4 motors because we had 4 motors in our robot last year.
for driving?
Yeah.
And you can add more motors if you configure them all. So we're gonna try and show you how to do that. So when you go into your op mode, there's a column on the left side where all of the utilities and stuff, like the purple blocks, telemetry is in there, the repeat whiles in there, and the powers are in there. So if you click into DC motor, or you click into actuators, and then you click DC motor, and then if you select DC motor, click on it, it'll bring you to all of your powers.
And it doesn't matter if it says like set lifter to power, you can change lifter to any other motor that you have configured.
Power.
So we're going to,
So we'll add another motor.
yeah.
So that one, set it right under there.
So we're gonna set this lifter power to, right now it would just be, it doesn't have a variable in it right now, so set it to. So we would have to put a variable of some kind, so it can either be like a button, a joystick, or a trigger, or something like that. And for the joysticks and triggers,
You can control out of my bag. So you have two joysticks, you have two sticks on your controller. And so for that, we have the left stick Y and the right stick Y for controlling power. And so when you drag out your power, it'll have a name in it already, but you can change it to whatever you want. So click on drop. And so we configured a back left and a back right. So click on the back right. So now that will set the back right power to either a left stick or a right stick. And since it's the back right, we'll use the right stick Y. And so then you would click on the gamepad 1, right stick Y. You click on that and you can duplicate it. If you double click on them, you can duplicate any block instead of having to drag it out. So right there, if you click on the main one, it'll duplicate both of them. But if you click on the outside one, it'll just duplicate that one.
but with the gamepad 1 right stick, there's no number right there. That's because the number would be coming from the stick, and it's saying the y-axis of the stick, which is up and down. When that is whatever it is, like up to 1, it would set that power. And it's also the same for joysticks, not joysticks, triggers. But triggers don't have, trigger only goes one way. Instead of a joystick, they can go on an X and Y axis.
So if we're using the back right motor, we have it right stick Y, but if it was back left, then we would have to switch this to a left stick Y. So that'll be, so when you go up and down, it'll change the power of your back left motor. But now we've only dragged in the back left motor, so we would also need to make the back right motor. So one of the ways, you can either go into the DC motor and drag out another one, or you can click that duplicate button, and then you'll have another one. And you can get back right, and now we need to switch it to right stick Y.
And now we've programmed 4 motors to move it forwards
Forward
and
and backwards. And so these telemetry bits down here will report the power of each of those motors. So if we wanted to report the power of the back left motor and the back right motor, we would have to duplicate them. But since that is still set to the front right motor, but now we want to set it to the back right or the back left, and then we'd have to rename this to left power.
then you can duplicate that again and change it to your
Back right
back
power.
right power as well.
And since we have that call telemetry update at the bottom, it'll keep updating it. So every time you change the position of your joystick, it'll change the power.
But let's say we want to program a lifter to go up with a button.
Like an arm.
So we would have to go and get another power. And we would have to go up to gamepad all the way at the top. We're almost at the top. And then you could do gamepad 1A, saying the A button. You have to get one of the
Math block. so if you have, last year we had 2 controllers for our robot. So one would be a drive controller and one would be an arm controller. And so those, how you change which are controlling which, is you see how it says gamepad 1? You can switch it to gamepad 2, and so that would be your second controller. So you go next to gamepad 2. And now you can use 2 controllers to control, one controlling your wheels and one controlling your arm.
The button. Try and make it but this will be on this. That one's for
So now you know how to. That doesn't work. Don't mess with that now. Delete it. But so that's how you can add your back left and your back right motors to your basic tank drive. And so we didn't change the repeat while and we did not change the if do, so it'll still all work during off mode. Yeah, that's it.
You can open up for questions.
Anybody have questions?